A stormy night in 1930s London. Rain hammering the cobblestones, and a chilling scream cuts through the fog. A woman stands over a lifeless body, her eyes wide with terror, or is it cunning? Enter Hercule Poirot, the world's greatest detective, whose sharp mind is about to unravel a mystery so twisted it could be his deadliest game yet, ready to step into the shadows of deception. Let's dive into Poirot and the Enchantress Alibi. Welcome, mystery lovers, to the first chapter of our thrilling tale. Poirot and the Enchantress Alibi, his deadliest game, if you're a fan of clever twists, cunning suspects, and the brilliance of Hercule Poirot, you're in for a treat. This is a story where every glance hides a secret, and every word could be a lie. Today, we're setting the stage for a murder mystery that'll keep you guessing until the very end. So, grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's step into 1930s London, where danger lurks in the fog. This is Chapter 1. The Scream in the Night. The rain was relentless that November evening, pounding the streets of London like a vengeful drum. In a grand townhouse on Belgrave Square, a glittering party was in full swing. The chandeliers sparkled, champagne flowed, and laughter filled the air until a scream shattered the merriment. It was a sound that stopped hearts, a piercing cry that echoed from the upstairs library. Guests froze, glasses clinking as they were set down, and a hush fell over the room. That's where we begin, with a mystery already unfolding. Hercule Poirot, the famed Belgian detective with his impeccable mustache and razor-sharp mind, was among the guests. He'd been invited by the host, Lord Ashford, a wealthy industrialist with a penchant for lavish gatherings. But now, as the scream faded, Poirot's grey cells were already stirring. Something was terribly wrong. Let's paint the scene. The townhouse was a maze of opulent rooms, filled with London's elite aristocrats, artists, and a few shadowy figures with secrets of their own. Poirot, dressed in his usual pristine suit, had been sipping a tisane, observing the guests with his keen eyes. There was Lady Evelyn Marwood, a glamorous actress known as the Enchantress for her spellbinding performances. Her emerald gown shimmered, but her smile seemed forced. Next to her stood Victor Crane, a sharp-tongued journalist with a knack for uncovering scandals. Across the room, Dr. Amelia Holt, a brilliant but aloof physician, whispered to Lord Ashford's young nephew, Thomas, who looked nervous, his hands fidgeting. And then there was Clara Beaumont, Lord Ashford's fiancée, a quiet beauty, with a mysterious past. Each of them, Poirot noted, had something to hide, but who among them was connected to that scream? The guests rushed toward the library, Poirot leading the way with his calm, deliberate steps. The heavy oak door was ajar, and inside, the scene was grim. Lord Ashford lay sprawled on the Persian rug, a letter opener plunged into his chest. Blood stained his white shirt, and his eyes stared blankly at the ceiling. Gasps filled the room, but Poirot's gaze was steady. He knelt beside the body, his gloved fingers brushing the air as he examined the scene. The window was open, rain blowing in, and a faint scent of jasmine lingered. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, "this is no accident." The letter opener was ornate, engraved with the initials Evelyn Marwood, the Enchantress. All eyes turned to her. She stood frozen, her face pale, clutching a silk handkerchief. "I didn't do it," she cried, her voice trembling. But the evidence was damning, and the guests whispered, "Was the Enchantress a murderer?" Let's talk about Poirot's method for a moment. If you've followed his cases, you know he doesn't rush to conclusions. He observes, he listens, and he trusts his little grey cells. Here, he began cataloguing details: the position of the body, the angle of the wound, the open window. Why was the letter opener, a personal item, used as the weapon? And why was the window open on such a stormy night? Poirot's mind was a machine, piecing together the puzzle. He turned to the guests, his voice calm but commanding. "Mes amis, no one leaves this house. A crime has been committed, and Poirot will uncover the truth." The tension was palpable. Some guests looked frightened, others defiant. Lady Evelyn, still clutching her handkerchief, met Poirot's gaze with a mix of fear and defiance. Was she guilty, or was someone framing her now? Let's explore the suspects a bit more, because in a Poirot mystery, everyone's a player in the game. Lady Evelyn, the Enchantress, had emotive rumours swirled that Lord Ashford was about to end their professional partnership, which funded her theatre. Victor Crane, the journalist, had clashed with Ashford over a scathing article exposing his business dealings. Dr. Amelia Holt had been seen arguing with Ashford earlier that evening, though no one knew why. And Clara Beaumont, the fiancée, stood to inherit Ashford's fortune, and has his death changed everything? Even young Thomas, the nephew, seemed uneasy, his eyes darting to the shadows. Poirot noted all of this, his moustache twitching as he smiled faintly. "The truth," he said to himself, "is always in the details." As the police arrived, led by the gruff Inspector Harrow, Poirot took Welcome back, mystery fans, to the second chapter of Poirot and the Enchantress Alibi, his Deadliest Game. If you caught chapter 1, you know we're knee-deep in a deliciously twisted murder mystery. Lord Reginald Ashford is dead, stabbed, with a letter opener in his Belgrave Square townhouse, and all eyes are on the glamorous Lady Evelyn Marwood, the Enchantress, whose initials were on the murder weapon. But Hercule Poirot, with his sharp mind and sharper moustache, isn't buying the obvious just yet. Today, we're diving into Chapter 2, The Enchantress Speaks. Get ready for secrets, lies, and Poirot's knack for peeling back the layers of deception. Let's step back into the stormy night and see what unfolds. Grab your detective hat and let's go. The rain hadn't let up, hammering the windows of the Ashford townhouse as the clock struck midnight. The guests, now suspects, were gathered. In the drawing room, their faces a mix of fear, anger, and curiosity. The air was thick with tension, like a fog you could cut with a knife. Hercule Poirot stood by the fireplace, his small frame commanding the room. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, scanned each face, noting every twitch, every glance. Inspector Harrow, the gruff policeman, paced near the door, muttering about fingerprints and alibis. But Poirot, he was already 3 steps ahead, his little grey cells buzzing. He'd decided to start with Lady Evelyn, the actress whose letter opener was found in Ashford's chest. Was she a killer, or was someone playing a cruel game with her as the pawn? Let's set the scene in more detail. The drawing room was a study in opulence, velvet curtains, gold-framed paintings, and a massive crystal chandelier casting flickering shadows. The guests sat on plush sofas, but no one was relaxed. Victor Crane, the journalist, scribbled notes, his pen scratching like an accusation. Dr. Amelia Holt, the physician, sat stiffly, her hands clasped tightly, as if holding back a secret. Clara Beaumont, Ashford's fiancée, stared at the floor, her delicate fingers twisting a pearl necklace. Young Thomas, the nephew, hovered near the back, his boyish face pale and sweaty. And then there was Lady Evelyn, perched on an armchair like a queen on trial. Her emerald gown was slightly creased now, her makeup smudged from tears or a performance. Poirot approached her, his voice soft but firm. "Mademoiselle Marwood, a word, if you please." Lady Evelyn's story was a masterclass in drama, and Poirot listened with rapt attention. She claimed she'd been in the ballroom all evening, charming guests and sipping champagne. "I swear, Monsieur Poirot, I never went near the library," she said, her voice trembling but her eyes steady. She admitted the letter opener was hers, a gift from Ashford himself, but said she'd lost it weeks ago. "Someone must have taken it to frame me," she insisted. Poirot tilted his head, noting the way her hands fluttered, like a bird caught in a net. He asked about the note found under the chair, the one in Ashford's handwriting that read, "Beware the Enchantress." Evelyn's face crumpled. "He was angry with me," she admitted. "He wanted to end our partnership. My theatre depended on his funding, but I didn't kill him." Her voice rose, and the other guests exchanged glances. Was she acting, or was her fear genuine? Let's dive deeper into Evelyn's world. She was no ordinary actress. She was a star, known for captivating audiences with her charm and intensity. But fame came with enemies. Poirot learned from hushed whispers among the guests that Evelyn had a reputation for ruthlessness. She'd once sabotaged a rival actress's career, and there were rumors of a scandal involving a married director. Could someone from her past have planted the letter opener to ruin her? Poirot also uncovered a detail Evelyn hadn't mentioned. She'd been seen arguing with Ashford in the garden earlier that evening, their voices raised over money. "A disagreement, nothing more," Evelyn said when pressed, but her eyes flickered. Poirot made a mental note. The Enchantress was hiding something, and he would find out what. Don't. Now, let's talk about Poirot's technique, because it's pure genius. He doesn't just ask questions, he observes behavior. When Evelyn spoke, he watched her hands, her posture, the way her lips tightened on certain words. He noticed she glanced at Clara Beaumont twice during her story, as if gauging her reaction. Why? Poirot also asked seemingly trivial questions. "Mademoiselle, what perfume do you wear?" Evelyn blinked, surprised. "Jasmine," she said. Bingo, the same scent Poirot had detected in the library. But jasmine was common, and Clara wore it too, as did Dr. Holt. The clue was tantalizing, but not conclusive. Poirot's method is like a chess game. Every move is deliberate, setting up the board for the checkmate. For us, it's a reminder to listen not just to words but to what's unsaid. Try it in your next conversation. Watch for the pauses, the glances. You'll be amazed what you learn. Back in the drawing room, Poirot shifted his attention to the other suspects, planting seeds of doubt. He asked Victor Crane about his whereabouts during the scream. Victor claimed he'd been in the billiard room, but his shifty eyes suggested otherwise. Dr. Holt said she was checking her coat in the cloakroom, but no one could confirm it. Clara Beaumont said she was with Thomas, comforting him after he'd spilled wine on his suit. A convenient alibi, Poirot thought. Thomas nodded nervously, but his hands shook. Each story had holes, and Poirot was like a tailor, stitching them together to see the pattern. He also returned to the library for a closer look, with Inspector Harrow trailing him. The muddy footprint near the window intrigued him. It was small, yes, but the tread was unusual, with a distinctive diamond pattern. A lady's shoe, perhaps, Poirot mused, or a man's with a clever disguise. Let's zoom in on that footprint, because it's a classic Poirot clue. The rain had left the ground outside soft, perfect for capturing prints. Poirot examined the window ledge and found a faint smudge of mud, suggesting someone had climbed. In or out. But why leave the window open? To stage a break-in or to escape? He also found a tiny thread of green silk caught on the window. Lady Evelyn's gown was emerald, but so was Clara's shawl. The clues were piling up, each one a piece of the puzzle. Poirot's mind worked like a kaleidoscope, turning fragments into a picture. He asked the butler, Mr. Grayson, about the library's layout. Grayson, a wiry man with a nervous tic, confirmed. The window was usually locked. Someone had opened it deliberately. The storm raged on outside the Ashford townhouse, the wind howling like a chorus of ghosts. Inside, the drawing room was a pressure cooker of suspicion, the air heavy with the scent of fear and jasmine. Hercule Poirot, his moustache gleaming under the chandelier's light, stood like a conductor before an orchestra of secrets. In Chapter 2, we saw him unravel Lady Evelyn's shaky alibi, her emerald gown and jasmine perfume tying her to the crime scene, the muddy footprint and the cryptic note, "Beware the Enchantress' pointed fingers." But Poirot's grey cells were skeptical. Now, in Chapter 3, The Journalist's Secrets, we dive into the world of Victor Crane, the sharp-tongued journalist with a nose for scandal. His pen might be mightier than the sword, but could it be deadly? Let's find out as Poirot tightens the screws and the mystery deepens. Stay sharp, because this game is getting deadlier. Victor Crane sat slouched in a leather armchair, his dark eyes glinting with defiance. His suit was rumpled, his tie loose, and his notebook lay open on his lap, filled with scribbled secrets. Poirot approached him, his polished shoes silent on the Persian rug. "Monsieur Crane," Poirot said, his voice smooth as velvet, "you are a man who sees much, yes. Tell me, what did you see tonight?" Crane smirked, but his fingers tightened. On his pen, "I saw a room full of liars, Monsieur Poirot," he replied. "Including you?" Poirot asked, his eyes twinkling. The journalist's smirk faltered. Crane claimed he'd been in the billiard room during the scream, playing a solo game of snooker. But Poirot noticed a smudge of ink on Crane's cuff, a fresh stain, not from hours ago. Was Crane writing something in the library, or something else? Let's paint Victor Crane in vivid detail. He was a lean man in his 30s, with a hawkish face and a reputation for digging up dirt. His articles in the London Chronicle had ruined reputations, including Lord Ashford's, whose shady business dealings Crane had exposed last month. The article called Ashford a tyrant of industry, and whispers among the guests suggested Ashford was furious. Motive, check. Poirot pressed Crane on the article. "It was the truth," Crane snapped, his voice sharp as a blade. "Ashford was fleecing his workers, and he threatened to sue me. But I don't kill over lawsuits." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "Then why, monsieur, were you seen near the library door just before the scream?" Crane's face froze. A guest, the nervous butler, Mr. Grayson, had mentioned seeing Crane slip upstairs. Crane claimed he was looking for the washroom, but his eyes darted to the left, a classic tell. Now, let's zoom in on Poirot's interrogation style, because it's a masterclass in psychology. He didn't accuse, he probed like a surgeon. With a scalpel, he asked Crane about his notebook, noting the journalist's habit of jotting down overheard conversations. "Did you overhear something between Lord Ashford and another, perhaps?" Poirot asked. Crane hesitated, then admitted he'd heard Ashford arguing with Dr. Amelia Holt in the hallway about a medical matter. What kind? Crane didn't No, or wouldn't say. Poirot's mustache twitched. He also noticed Crane's shoes, polished, but the soles were damp, with a faint trace of mud. Not the diamond-patterned footprint from the library, but suspicious nonetheless. Poirot filed it away, his mind a steel trap for details. Let's explore the crime scene again, because Poirot's obsessive about the little things. He returned to the library with Inspector Harrow, who was growing impatient. This is my case. Poirot, Harrow grumbled. Poirot ignored him, crouching by the window. The green silk thread on the latch was gone. Someone had removed it. The muddy footprint, however, remained, and Poirot sketched it in his mind. A small shoe, size 6, with a diamond tread. Women's shoes, perhaps, but Crane's feet were small for a man. Could he have worn a disguise? Poirot also found a tiny drop of red wax near the fireplace, as if a candle had been dripped. No candles were lit in the library, so where did it come from? The jasmine scent lingered, and Poirot recalled Crane's earlier comment about Lady Evelyn's perfume. She reeks of jasmine, doesn't she? Was Crane deflecting or pointing a finger? Here's a practical tip from Poirot's playbook. Watch for inconsistencies. Crane's story about the billiard room didn't add up. Nobody plays snooker alone during a party. In your own life, pay attention to stories that feel too polished or too vague. If your friend says they were just out but their shoes are muddy, ask questions. Poirot's genius is in catching these slips. Try this. Next time you suspect someone's fibbing, ask a specific, unexpected question, like what they ate for lunch. It throws them off, and the truth often slips out. For Poirot, Crane's damp shoes and ink-stained cuff were red flags, and he wasn't letting them go. Back in the drawing room, the other suspects were unraveling. Clara Beaumont, Ashford's fiancée, was sobbing quietly, but Poirot caught her. Stealing glances at Crane. Were they connected? Dr. Amelia Holt, the physician, was pacing, her cool demeanor cracking. She muttered about incompetent police, loud enough for Harrow to hear. Young Thomas, the nephew, was practically shaking, his eyes fixed on the floor. Poirot approached Clara next, his voice gentle. Mademoiselle, you were close to Lord Ashford. Did he speak of enemies? Clara's lips trembled. He said Victor. Crane was a snake, out to destroy him. Crane overheard and laughed bitterly. He destroyed himself. Crane shot back. The room crackled with tension, and Poirot's eyes gleamed. He loved a good showdown. Let's dig into Crane's background for a moment. He wasn't just any journalist, he was a crusader, obsessed with exposing corruption. But he had a dark side, rumors of blackmail, using his notes to extort money from the elite. Ashford, with his vast wealth, would have been a prime target. Poirot asked Crane about his finances, a bold move. You live well for a journalist, monsieur. A new suit, fine watch, how so? Crane's face reddened. I earn my keep. He growled, but Poirot knew better blackmailers often flaunted their gains. He also noticed Crane's notebook had a torn page. Had he written something incriminating and destroyed it? Poirot requested to see the notebook, but Crane refused, clutching it like a lifeline. Suspicious? Absolutely. Another clue surfaced. The butler, Mr. Grayson, nervously approached Poirot. Sir, I forgot to mention, Mr. Crane asked me about Lord Ashford's safe earlier tonight. The safe, hidden behind a painting in the library, was untouched. But the rain battered the Ashford townhouse, a relentless drumbeat against the windows, as if nature itself demanded answers. Inside, the drawing room was a cauldron of suspicion, the guests' nerves fraying like old rope. Hercule Poirot, his eyes gleaming with quiet intensity, stood at the center of it all. His mind a whirl of clues: the muddy footprint, the missing green silk thread, the drop of red wax, and that haunting jasmine scent. In Chapter 3, Victor Crane's slippery alibi and ink-stained cuff raised red flags. But his shoes didn't match the library's footprint. Now, in Chapter 4, The Doctor's Secret, we turn to Dr. Amelia Holt, the icy physician whose argument with Lord Ashford hints at a hidden motive. Poirot's closing in, and the truth is starting to crack. Let's dive into the shadows of this deadly game and see what secrets spill out. Dr. Amelia Holt sat ramrod straight on a velvet sofa, her grey eyes cold as steel. Her tailored navy dress was immaculate, her auburn hair pinned tightly, but her clenched fists betrayed her calm. Poirot approached, his steps deliberate, his voice a soothing contrast to the storm outside. "Dr. Holt," he began, "you are a woman of science, of precision. Yet tonight you argued with Lord Ashford. Why?" Amelia's lips tightened, but she met his gaze. "It was a professional matter," she said curtly. "He questioned my expertise." Poirot's mustache twitched. He'd heard from Crane that the argument was about a medical matter, and the butler, Mr. Grayson, had seen Amelia near the library just before the scream. Her alibi checking her coat in the cloakroom was flimsy with no witnesses. Was she hiding a deadly truth? Let's sketch Dr. Holt in vivid detail. She was in her early 40s, a respected physician known for her groundbreaking work in toxicology. Her cool demeanor made her a standout in London's medical circles, but it also made her enemies. Ashford, a hypochondriac, had consulted her often, yet their relationship was strained. Guests whispered that Ashford had threatened to expose. A mistake in her past, a misdiagnosis, perhaps, or something darker. Poirot pressed her on the argument. "He was irrational," Amelia snapped, her voice sharp. "He accused me of prescribing dangerous treatments. Dangerous enough to kill," Poirot wondered. He noticed her perfume jasmine, like Evelyn's, and Clara's butt, also a faint chemical scent on her hands, like antiseptic, a doctor's habit, or a clue. Poirot's interrogation was a dance, each question a step closer to the truth. He asked about her movements during the party. Amelia claimed she'd been mingling, then slipped to the cloakroom to retrieve a medical journal from her coat. "I needed a moment alone," she said, but Poirot caught a flicker in her eyes when he mentioned the library. He shifted tactics, asking about her medical bag, which she'd brought to the party. "Standard practice," she said, but her voice wavered. Poirot requested to see it. Inside, he found vials of sedatives, a scalpel, and a small bottle of red sealing wax matching the drop in the library. "For sealing patient records," she explained quickly. Too quickly. Poirot's grey cells buzzed. Was the wax a coincidence? Or a damning link? Let's revisit the crime scene, because Poirot never misses a detail. He returned to the library, Inspector Harrow trailing like an annoyed shadow. The muddy footprint size 6, diamond tread still nagged at him. Amelia's shoes were practical, but a quick glance confirmed they were size 7, with no diamond pattern. Still, Poirot noticed a smudge of mud on her hem, barely visible against the navy fabric. Had she been outside? The open window suggested an intruder, but the latch was clean now, the green silk thread gone. Someone was covering their tracks. Poirot examined the red wax drop again, near the fireplace. It was fresh, not melted by heat, suggesting it was dripped deliberately. Amelia's wax bottle was a match, but so common it proved nothing yet. Here's a tip from Poirot's playbook. Details reveal character. Amelia's antiseptic scent and sealed wax bottles spoke of precision, but her nervous glances betrayed fear. In your own life, notice the small habits, how someone organizes their desk or fidgets under pressure. These are windows into their mind. Try this. When you're puzzled by someone's behavior, observe their routines. Do they check their phone obsessively? Avoid eye contact. Poirot used these cues to read Amelia, noting her rigid posture softened when he mentioned Clara Beaumont. Was there a connection? He filed it away, his mind a vault of clues. Back in the drawing room, the suspects were unraveling. Lady Evelyn, still pale, watched Amelia with narrowed eyes, as if sensing a rival suspect. Victor Crane scribbled furiously, his pen a weapon of its own. Clara Beaumont clutched her pearl necklace, her face a mask of grief or guilt. Young Thomas, the nephew, was near collapse, muttering about bad luck. Poirot turned to Amelia again, asking about her argument with Ashford. He threatened to ruin me, she admitted, her voice low. He claimed I'd mishandled a patient, his cousin, who died last year. A motive, perhaps, but murder. Poirot probed further, learning the cousin's death was ruled natural, yet Ashford suspected poisoning. Toxicology was Amelia's expertise. Suspicious. Very. Let's dig into Amelia's past, because Poirot's nothing if not thorough. She'd risen from humble beginnings, her career a testament to grit. But a year ago, a scandal had flickered. A patient, Ashford's cousin, died. Under her care. The inquest cleared her, but rumors lingered. Ashford's threat to reopen the case could have destroyed her. Poirot also learned Amelia had treated Ashford for insomnia, prescribing sedatives. Could she have slipped him something lethal? He checked the body again, noting Ashford's pupils were dilated, sign of poisoning. Perhaps, though the stab wound was the clear cause of death. Poirot requested Amelia's medical bag be tested for toxins, earning a scowl from Harrow. You're overcomplicating things, the inspector growled. Poirot smiled. Simplicity is the killer's trap. Another clue emerged. The butler, Mr. Grayson, approached Poirot, his tic more pronounced. Dr. Holt asked me about Lord Ashford's safe, too, he whispered. She wanted to know if it held medical records. To suspect Scrane and Holt in the safe. Poirot examined it again, the scratches around the lock deeper than he'd thought. The sealed envelope inside, unopened, bore Ashford. The storm outside the Ashford townhouse raged on, its thunder shaking the walls as if demanding the truth. Inside, the drawing room was a crucible of tension, the suspect's eyes darting like trapped animals. Hercule Poirot, his small frame, radiating quiet authority, stood amidst the chaos, his grey cells weaving clues into a tapestry of suspicion. In Chapter 4, Dr. Amelia Holt's icy facade cracked under Poirot's probing. Her toxicology expertise and the mysterious red wax drop pointing to a possible poison plot, yet the muddy footprint didn't match her shoes. The jasmine scent, the missing silk thread, and the empty cyanide vial kept the mystery swirling. Now, in Chapter 5, the fiancée's facade, we turn to Clara Beaumont, Lord Ashford's enigmatic fiancée, whose quiet grief hides a storm of secrets. Poirot's closing in, and the game is deadlier than ever. Let's unravel the truth behind Clara's tears. Clara Beaumont sat on a brocade chaise, her delicate hands clutching a pearl necklace as tears streaked her porcelain face. Her lavender gown, edged with green silk, shimmered faintly, and her Jasmine perfume mingled with the room's heavy air. Poirot approached, his voice gentle as a whisper. "Mademoiselle Beaumont," he said, "you loved Lord Ashford, yes. Yet love can hide many truths. What do you know of his death?" Clara's eyes, red-rimmed, met his, and for a moment a flicker of steel shone through her grief. "I was with Thomas when we heard the scream," she said softly. "I loved Reginald. I'd never hurt him." But Poirot noticed her fingers twisting the pearls, nearly snapping the strand. Her alibi, tied to young Thomas, was too convenient. Let's paint Clara in vivid detail. At 26, she was a vision of understated beauty, with soft blonde curls and a reserved demeanor that made her seem fragile. But Poirot sensed strength beneath the surface. Clara had met Ashford only a year ago, a whirlwind romance that shocked society. Ashford, the aging industrialist, and Clara, the mysterious newcomer with no known family. Whispers among the guests suggested she was a fortune hunter, set to inherit Ashford's millions. Poirot asked about her past, but Clara deflected. "I came from a small village," she said vaguely. "Reginald was my future." Her voice broke, but her eyes stayed dry for a beat too long. Poirot's mustache twitched. Grief, or a performance? Poirot's method was surgical, cutting through Clara's words with precision. He asked about her movements during the party. She claimed she'd been in the ballroom, comforting Thomas after he spilled wine on his suit. Thomas nodded when questioned, but his nervous stammer made Poirot skeptical. Clara's lavender gown had a green silk shawl, matching the thread found on the library window latch before it vanished. Poirot asked about the shawl. "I lost it earlier," Clara said quickly, her cheeks flushing. A lie. He also noted her shoes, small, size 6, with a faint trace of mud on the soles. Not diamond-treaded, but close enough to raise his suspicions. And that jasmine perfume Evelyn, Amelia, and now Clara all wore it. A coincidence, or a deliberate red herring? Let's revisit the crime scene, because Poirot's obsession with details is our guide. He slipped back to the library, Inspector Harrow grumbling but allowing it. The muddy footprint size 6, diamond tread remained a puzzle. Shoes were the right size, but the tread didn't match. Poirot examined the window again, picturing the scene. Rain blowing in, the latch open, the green silk thread gone. He found a new clue, a single pearl, small and lustrous, tucked in a corner near the window. Clara's necklace was missing a pearl, he recalled, having noticed a gap in the strand. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, "the fiancée is not so innocent." The cyanide vial, with its almond-like scent, also nagged at him. Clara had no medical training, but her access to Ashford's private quarters could have given her opportunities. Here's a tip from Poirot's playbook. Watch for what's missing. Clara's lost shawl, the missing pearl, the vanished silk thread. These absences are as telling as what's present. In your own life, notice what's not there. If a friend dodges a question or an item disappears, it's a clue. Try this. Keep track of gaps in stories or routines, like a co-worker who's suddenly vague about their weekend. Poirot's genius lies in seeing the negative space, and Clara's missing pearl was a glaring void. He pocketed it, his mind racing with possibilities. Back in the drawing room, the suspects were fraying. Lady Evelyn, still under suspicion, glared at Clara, as if sensing competition for the spotlight. Victor Crane, his notebook clutched tightly, muttered about gold diggers. Dr. Amelia Holt, her composure regained, watched Clara with clinical interest. Thomas, the nephew, was practically vibrating with nerves, avoiding Clara's gaze. Poirot asked Clara about Ashford's enemies. He had many, she whispered. Victor's article hurt him deeply, and he distrusted Amelia after his cousin's death. She paused, then added, and Evelyn. He said she was dangerous. Poirot noted the deflection. Clara was pointing fingers, but her own secrets loomed large. Let's dive into Clara's motives, because Poirot's peeling back layers. As Ashford's fiancée, she stood to inherit his estate, but only if they married. A guest had overheard Ashford arguing with Clara days ago, hinting he might break the engagement. He found something out about her, the guest whispered. To Poirot, what? Clara's past was a blank slate. No family, no records. Poirot learned from the butler, Mr. Grayson, that Clara had asked about Ashford's safe, just like Crane and Holt. She wanted to know if Reginald kept personal letters there, Grayson said, his tic twitching. The safe, with its scratched lock and sealed envelope, was a magnet for suspicion. Had Clara tried to open it, seeking to destroy evidence of her past? Another clue surfaced. The scream. Clara claimed she and Thomas heard it while in the ballroom, but Poirot's timeline didn't add up. The scream came from upstairs, near the library, yet Clara said she was downstairs. He tested her, asking, Mademoiselle, describe the scream. Clara hesitated. It was shrill, frightened, she said. But Poirot had noticed the screams, pitch-low, almost deliberate. Not a woman's panic, but a calculated cry. Was Clara the screamer, drawing attention to the body? He also checked. The storm outside the Ashford townhouse roared like a caged beast, its lightning flashes illuminating the strained faces within. The drawing room, once a stage for laughter and champagne, now felt like a courtroom, with Hercule Poirot as the relentless judge. His sharp eyes missed nothing, his grey cells piecing together a puzzle of muddy footprints. A missing pearl, a drop of red wax, and the elusive jasmine scent. In Chapter 5, Clara Beaumont's fragile facade cracked under Poirot's probing her. Missing pearl and green shawl tied her to the library, but the diamond tread footprint didn't match her shoes. The cyanide vial and the safe's secrets kept the mystery alive. Now, in Chapter 6, the nephew's nervousness. We turn to young Thomas Ashford, the trembling nephew whose shaky alibi and fidgeting hands hide a story begging to be told. Poirot's tightening the noose, and the game is deadlier than ever. Let's dive into Thomas's secrets and see what breaks. Thomas Ashford, barely 20, stood near the drawing room's shadowed corner, his lanky frame hunched as if trying to disappear. His boyish face was pale, his dark hair damp with sweat, and his fingers twisted a handkerchief into knots. Poirot approached, his calm demeanour a stark contrast to Thomas's jittery energy. Monsieur Thomas, Poirot said, his voice soft, but piercing. You are nervous, yes. The innocent have nothing to fear, yet you tremble. Why? Thomas's eyes darted to Clara, then to the floor. I was with Clara when we heard the scream, he stammered. I didn't see anything. But his voice cracked, and Poirot's moustache twitched. Thomas's alibi leaned on Clara, but his panic suggested more a secret, perhaps, or a guilt too heavy for his young shoulders. Let's paint Thomas in vivid detail. He was Lord Ashford's nephew, the son of his late sister, raised in the shadow. Of his uncle's wealth, with no fortune of his own, Thomas depended on Ashford's generosity, working as his uncle's secretary. Guests whispered he resented the role, calling him the errand boy behind his back. His suit, though tailored, was stained with red wine from his earlier mishap, and his shoes, small for a man, size 7, was scuffed, with a faint trace of mud. Poirot noted this, recalling the library's size 6 diamond tread footprint. Not a match, but close enough to pique his interest. Thomas's eyes, wide and bloodshot, avoided Clara's, yet he'd backed her alibi. Were they protecting each other, or was Thomas her pawn? Poirot's interrogation was a masterclass in patience. He sat across from Thomas, his hands folded, his gaze steady. "Tell me, monsieur, what did you and Mademoiselle Beaumont discuss before the scream?" Thomas swallowed hard. "She was helping me clean the wine off my suit," he said. "We were in the ballroom near the stairs." But Poirot had spoken to a maid who saw Thomas alone near the library door moments before the scream. When confronted, Thomas's face flushed. I stepped out for air," he mumbled. "Air in a storm." Poirot pressed further, asking about his uncle's enemies. "Uncle Reginald was hard," Thomas admitted. "He fought with everyone, Evelyn, Crane, Dr. Holt." He paused, then added, "and Clara. He didn't trust her lately." Eyes gleamed. A crack in the facade. Let's revisit the crime scene, because Poirot's clues are piling up. He returned to the library, Inspector Harrow muttering about wasted time. The muddy footprint size, 6, diamond tread remained elusive. But Poirot noticed something new, a faint smudge of red wine on the library's oak doorframe at shoulder height. Thomas's wine spill, or a sign he'd been there. The open windows still baffled him, rain-soaked curtains, no fingerprints on the latch, and the missing green silk thread. The pearl, found near the window, pointed to Clara, but Thomas's proximity to the library raised questions. Poirot also re-examined. The cyanide vial, its almond-like, sent a whisper of poison. Thomas had no medical knowledge, but his access to Ashford's study, where medicines were kept, made him a wild card. Here's a tip from Poirot's playbook: fear betrays the guilty. Thomas's trembling hands and shifting stories screamed anxiety. In your life, watch for signs of unease, sweaty palms, rushed words, or avoiding eye contact. These are clues to hidden truths. Try this. When someone's acting off, ask a casual but specific question, like what time they left work. Poirot used this on Thomas, noting his stammer when asked about the scream's pitch. "It was loud," Thomas said vaguely, unlike Clara's shrill description. Their stories didn't align, and Poirot pounced on the mismatch, his mind mapping their lies. Back in the drawing room, the suspects were a tangle of motives. Lady Evelyn, her composure fraying, whispered to Crane, who smirked. Dr. Amelia Holt, her eyes sharp, watched Thomas like a hawk. Clara, still clutching her pearls, avoided Thomas's gaze, her lips tight. Poirot asked Thomas about the safe, knowing Crane, Holt, and Clara had shown interest. "Did your uncle keep secrets there?" "Perhaps about you," Poirot asked. Thomas paled. He said I'd get nothing if I didn't obey him, he confessed. He was rewriting his will, a motive. Ashford's death before a new will would secure Thomas's inheritance. The butler, Mr. Grayson, added fuel, whispering to Poirot. "Master Thomas asked about the safe's combination last week." Suspicion coiled tighter. Let's dig into Thomas's world, because Poirot's peeling back layers. Thomas was no golden boy. He'd been caught gambling, racking up debts Ashford refused to pay. A guest overheard Ashford scolding Thomas days ago, threatening to cut him off. "You're a disgrace," Ashford had said. Did Thomas snap? Poirot noticed Thomas's handkerchief, monogrammed with TA, had a faint stain red wax, like the drop in the library. When asked, Thomas claimed it was candle wax from his room, but his voice shook. Poirot recalled Amelia's sealing wax bottle. Was Thomas borrowing it or framing her? He also checked Thomas's shoes against mud, but no diamond tread. Yet the wine smudge on the doorframe gnawed at him. Had Thomas been in the library, despite his claims? Another clue emerged: the scream's origin. Poirot questioned the maid, who swore it came from the library's direction, not the ballroom. Thomas's air excuse fell apart. Nobody stood in the rain during a storm. Poirot tested him further, asking about the jasmine scent. Clara wears it, Thomas said quickly, too quickly. Was he shielding her or deflecting? Poirot also found a crumpled bedding slip in Thomas's pocket when he accidentally brushed against him a debt of £500, due yesterday. Desperation was a powerful motive. The storm battered the Ashford townhouse, its howling winds a grim soundtrack to the unravelling mystery within. The drawing room, lit by flickering chandeliers, was a stage of suspicion, each suspect a player in a deadly drama. Hercule Poirot, his sharp eyes glinting like polished steel, stood at the heart of it. His grey cells weaving a tapestry from clues: a diamond tread footprint, a missing pearl, a drop of red wax, a cyanide vial, and the persistent jasmine scent. In Chapter 6, young Thomas Ashford's trembling hands and gambling debts painted him as a desperate suspect. But his shoes didn't match the footprint, and his story tangled with Clara's now. In Chapter 7, The Butler's Burden, we turn to Mr. Grayson, the nervous butler whose twitching tick and knowledge of the safe hint at secrets he's desperate to hide. Poirot's net is tightening, and the truth is clawing its way out. Let's dive into the shadows and uncover what Grayson knows. Mr. Grayson stood near the drawing room's entrance, his wiry frame rigid, his hands clasped behind his back. His greying hair was slicked neatly, but his left eye twitched like a metronome, betraying his nerves. Poirot approached, his voice smooth as silk. "Monsieur Grayson," he said, "you are the eyes and ears of this house. Yes. What did you see before Lord Ashford's death?" Grayson's tick quickened, and his lips parted before he caught himself. "I was tending to guests, sir," he said, his voice clipped. "I heard the scream and ran to the library." But Poirot had caught Grayson's earlier whispers about Crane, Holt, and Clara asking about the safe. The butler knew more than he let on, and his twitch was a telltale crack in his polished facade. Let's sketch Grayson in vivid detail. In his late 50s, he'd served the Ashford family for decades, a loyal shadow who knew every creak of the townhouse. His black suit was immaculate, but his shoes, size 8, polished to a shine, had a faint smear of mud, barely visible. Poirot noted this, recalling the library's size 6 diamond tread footprint. Not a match, but Grayson's access to every room made him a key player. His tic, a nervous habit, worsened under scrutiny, and his eyes flicked toward the library door when Poirot mentioned the safe. Grayson had admitted Thomas asked about its combination, and Clara and Holt inquired about its contents. Was Grayson guarding Ashford's secrets or his own? Poirot's interrogation was a delicate trap, his questions weaving a net around Grayson's words. He asked about the butler's duties that night. "I was serving drinks, Sir Grayson," said N, checking the fires. But a maid had seen him near the library, adjusting a painting, the one hiding the safe moments before the scream. When confronted, Grayson's tic surged. "I was straightening it," he insisted. Poirot's eyes narrowed. He asked about the safe's contents. "Papers, sir," Grayson said vaguely. "Lord Ashford's private matters." Poirot pressed further. noting Grayson's hands trembled when he mentioned the sealed envelope inside. "Did anyone try to open it?" Poirot asked. Grayson's silence was louder than words. "Let's return to the crime scene, because Poirot's clues are a maze of meaning." He slipped back to the library, Inspector Harrow sighing but following. The diamond tread footprints' size, sick still, eluded him, but the red wine smudge on the doorframe, tied to Thomas, nagged at his mind. The open window, rain-soaked curtains, and missing green silk thread suggested a staged scene. Poirot re-examined the red wax drop near the fireplace, its glossy surface matching Amelia Holt's sealing waxen now, a faint wax smudge on Grayson's cuff. "Monsieur, you handle candles, yes?" Poirot asked later. Grayson nodded, but his tic betrayed him. The cyanide vial, with its almond-like scent, also lingered. Grayson had access to Ashford's study, where medicines and chemicals were stored. Here's a tip from Poirot's playbook. Habits reveal truths. Grayson's tic and trembling hands screamed guilt, or at least knowledge. In your life, watch for unconscious tics, nail-biting, fidgeting, or a nervous laugh. They're windows into someone's mind. Try this next time you're suspicious. Note physical tells, like how someone shifts when questioned. Poirot used Grayson's tic like a compass, guiding him to the butler's secrets. He also noticed Grayson's deference to Clara, bowing slightly when she spoke. Was he loyal to her, or afraid? The butler's role as the house's gatekeeper made him a treasure trove of clues. Back in the drawing room, the suspects were unraveling. Lady Evelyn, her emerald gown creased, whispered accusations about Clara. Victor Crane, his notebook a shield, eyed Grayson with suspicion. Dr. Amelia Holt, her composure brittle, watched the butler like a scientist studying a specimen. Clara, her pearls gleaming, avoided Thomas's gaze, her fingers still twisting the strand. Poirot asked Grayson about Ashford's enemies. "He was a hard man, sir," Grayson said quietly. "He clashed with Mr. Crane over that article, Dr. Holt over his cousin's death, and Miss Evelyn over money." He hesitated, then added, "And Miss Clara." He doubted her loyalty. Poirot's ears pricked out at how let's dive into Grayson's world, because Poirot's peeling back the layers. The butler had served Ashford's father before him, a life of loyalty with little reward. Guests whispered Grayson resented Ashford's temper, especially after a public humiliation last month when Ashford berated him over a spilled tray. Did Grayson snap? Poirot learned from a footman that Grayson had a sister, ill and in need of expensive care. Ashford had refused to help, despite Grayson's years of service. Motive, possibly. Poirot also noticed Grayson's Keyser, heavy ring on his belt, including one for the safe. When asked, Grayson claimed only Ashford knew the combination, but his tics surged. Was he lying or protecting someone? Another clue emerged, the painting hiding the safe. Poirot returned to it, finding fresh scratches on the frame, as if it had been moved repeatedly. Grayson's straightening excuse felt thin. The safe's lock, scratched and worn, suggested multiple attempts to open it. The sealed envelope, inside bearing Ashford's crest, could hold a will, a confession, or proof of someone's past. Poirot asked Grayson about the library's visitors that night. "I saw Mr. Crane near the door," Grayson admitted, "and Dr. Holt passed. By earlier, he didn't mention Clara or Thomas, but his eyes flicked to them." Poirot also found a tiny brass button under the library desk, engraved with a GI. Grayson's coat was missing one. Coincidence or carelessness? Here's another tip. Look for what's out of place. Grayson's missing button and wax-smudged cuff were anomalies, like the storm's fury battered the Ashford townhouse, its lightning casting jagged shadows across the drawing room, where suspicion hung like a noose. Hercule Poirot, his moustache a beacon of calm, stood amidst the chaos, his grey cells stitching together a tapestry of clues, a size 6 diamond tread footprint, a missing pearl, a red wax drop, a cyanide vial, and the pervasive jasmine scent. In Chapter 7, the butler, Mr. Grayson's nervous tic and missing button tied him to the crime scene. But his larger shoes didn't match the footprint, and his knowledge of the safe hinted at deeper secrets. Now, in Chapter 8, the Enchantress. Unravelled, we return to Lady Evelyn Marwood, the glamorous actress whose letter opener pierced Lord Ashford's heart. Her alibi is crumbling, and Poirot's ready to expose her truths or her lies. The game is at its deadliest, so let's dive into the spotlight and see what shadows Evelyn casts. Lady Evelyn sat poised on an armchair, her emerald gown creased, but still radiant, her dark eyes glinting with defiance. Her jasmine perfume filled the air, a haunting echo of the library's scent. Poirot approached, his voice soft but cutting. "Mademoiselle Marwood," he said, "your letter opener was the weapon, your initials carved into its handle. You say you were framed, yet your story frays like cheap silk. Speak the truth." Evelyn's lips parted, then closed, her hands clutching a silk handkerchief. "I told you I was in the ballroom," she insisted, her voice steady but her eyes flickering. "I lost that letter opener weeks ago." Poirot's gaze locked onto hers, noting the slight tremor in her fingers. Was she the enchantress of murder, or a victim of a cunning trap? Let's paint Evelyn in vivid detail. In her late 30s, she was a star of London's theatres, her beauty and charisma earning her the title Enchantress. Her emerald gown, now slightly rumpled, was a statement of wealth. But her career hung by a thread. Ashford's funding was her lifeline, and he'd threatened to cut it. Guests whispered of her ruthless streak, a rival actress ruined, a director blackmailed. Poirot revisited her earlier claim of arguing with Ashford over money. "He wanted to control me," Evelyn admitted, her voice low. "He said my theatre was a waste, that I'd betrayed him." "Betrayed how?" Poirot pressed, but she deflected, her eyes darting to Clara. Her shoes size 6, elegant heels caught his eye. No diamond tread, but the size matched the library's. Footprint. Poirot's interrogation was a chess match, each question a move toward checkmate. He asked about her movements before the scream. "I was charming guests," Evelyn said, as always, but a footman had seen her slip upstairs, near the library, claiming to fetch a shawl. When confronted, Evelyn's composure cracked. "I needed air," she said, echoing Thomas's flimsy excuse. Poirot noted her handkerchief silk, like the missing green thread from the window latch. He asked about her perfume. "Jasmine." She confirmed, then added sharply, "Clara and Amelia wear it too." A deflection or a clue? He also recalled the note in Ashford's hand. "Beware the enchantress." Was it literal or a metaphor for betrayal? Let's return to the crime scene, because Poirot's clues are a labyrinth. He slipped back to the library, Inspector Harrow trailing with a scowl. The diamond tread footprint size 6 remained. A puzzle, but Evelyn's shoe size made her a contender, though her heels lacked the tread. The open window, rain-soaked curtains, and missing silk thread suggested a staged escape. But Poirot found a new clue, a tiny chip of emerald fabric caught in a splintered floorboard near the window. Evelyn's gown, or Clara's green shawl. The red wax drop near the fireplace, tied to Amelia and Grayson, still nagged, as did the cyanide vial's almond scent. Poirot re-examined the letter. Evelyn's initials, E.M., were engraved, but the handle was polished. No fingerprints. A professional's touch, or a frame. Here's a tip from Poirot's playbook. Watch for contradictions. Evelyn's claim of losing the letter opener weeks ago clashed with its pristine condition in Ashford's chest. In your life, spot inconsistencies, saying they were home but their coats wet. Try this. Ask a follow-up question when a story feels off, like where they parked their car. Poirot used this on Evelyn, asking when she last saw the letter opener. "A month ago," she said, but her eyes flicked leptoliers tell her jasmine scent, her size 6 shoes, and the emerald fabric chip were threads in Poirot's web, but the diamond thread didn't fit, and the note's warning loomed large. Back in the drawing room, the suspects were a powder keg. Victor Crane, his pen scratching, muttered about Evelyn's diva tantrums. Dr. Amelia Holt, her gaze icy, watched Evelyn like a rival. Clara Beaumont, her pearls gleaming, avoided eye contact, her fingers restless. Thomas, pale and sweating, hovered near the door as if ready to bolt. Poirot asked Evelyn about Ashford's note. "He was jealous," she said, her voice bitter. "He thought I was too close to someone else. Who?" she wouldn't say. But her glance at Crane raised Poirot's suspicions. Had Evelyn and the journalist conspired, or was she pointing fingers to save herself? The room crackled with unspoken accusations. Let's dive into Evelyn's motives, because Poirot's unravelling her core. Ashford's threat to cut her theatre funding was a death blower. Fame depended on it. A guest overheard Ashford accusing Evelyn of infidelity, hinting at a romantic betrayal. Was it true, or a misdirection? Poirot learned Evelyn had visited Ashford's study days before, alone, where medicines and, possibly cyanide, were kept. Her charm was a weapon, but so was her desperation. He asked about the safe, knowing Grayson, Crane, Holt, and Clara had shown interest. "Did you seek something in it, mademoiselle?" Poirot asked. Evelyn's face hardened. "Reginald kept my contract there," she said. "I wanted it back." A contract, or something more incriminating. Another clue surfaced, the scream. Poirot questioned a maid, who confirmed it came from the library's direction, low and deliberate, not a woman's panic. Evelyn, an actress, could mimic any sound. When asked to describe the scream, she said it was terrifying, like Lara had called it shrill, Thomas vague. Their stories didn't align, and Poirot's grey cells buzzed. He also noticed Evelyn's earrings' emerald studs, one slightly loose. Had she struggled in the library, leaving the fabric chip? He checked her. The storm outside the Ashford townhouse roared like a vengeful spirit, its lightning slicing through the drawing room's heavy air. The suspects, their faces taut with fear and defiance, sat in a tense semicircle, each a piece in Hercule Poirot's intricate puzzle. His grey cells hummed, weaving clues: a size 6 diamond thread footprint, a missing pearl, a red wax drop, a cyanide vial, and the elusive jasmine sent into a tapestry of truth. In Chapter 8, Lady Evelyn Marwood's crumbling alibi, her letter opener, and an emerald fabric chip tied her to the crime, but the footprint and poison kept the mystery alive. Now, in Chapter 9, The Web of Alibis, Poirot gathers all suspects to confront their lies, his sharp mind cutting through deception like a blade. The endgame is near, and the killer's mask is slipping. Let's step into the showdown and see who breaks. The drawing room was a pressure cooker, the chandelier's light casting harsh shadows on the suspects' faces. Poirot stood at the center, his small frame commanding, his eyes glinting with certainty. "Mes amis," he began, his voice a calm anchor in the storm, "a murder has been committed, and the truth lies among you. Your alibis are threads in a web of lies, and Hercule Poirot will unravel them." Lady Evelyn, her emerald gown faded in the dim light, clutched her handkerchief. Victor Crane, his notebook tight in his grip, smirked nervously. Dr. Amelia Holt, her grey eyes, icy, sat rigid. Clara Beaumont, her pearls gleaming, twisted her hands. Thomas Ashford, pale and trembling, hovered near the door. Mr. Grayson, the butler, stood stiffly, his tick twitching furiously. The stage was set for Poirot's masterstroke. Let's map the suspects in vivid detail. Evelyn, the Enchantress, was a star whose career hung on Ashford's funding, her letter opener the murder. Weapon, Crane, the journalist, had exposed Ashford's corruption, his ink-stained cuff and damp shoes suspicious. Holt, the toxicologist, argued with Ashford over a past scandal, her red wax bottle matching the library's drop. Clara, the fiancée, stood to inherit millions, her missing pearl and green shawl tying her to the scene. Thomas, the indebted nephew, faced disinheritance, his wine-stained suit and wax-smudged handkerchief damning. Grayson, the loyal butler, knew the safe's secrets, his missing button and tick betraying nerves. Each had motive, opportunity, and Lise Poirot's job was to find the truth. Poirot began with the scream, the spark that ignited the mystery. It was no cry of panic, he said, but a calculated act, low and deliberate, to draw us to the library. He eyed Evelyn, an actress skilled in mimicry. "Mademoiselle Marwood, you described it as high-pitched, yet it was not." Evelyn's face tightened. "I was mistaken," she said, but her eyes flicked to Clara. Poirot turned to Clara. "You called it shrill, mademoiselle, yet you were downstairs with Thomas." Clara nodded, but Thomas stammered, I don't recall." Their mismatched stories cracked under Poirot's gaze. He asked Grayson, who'd heard it clearly. "It came from the library, sir," the butler said, his tick surging. Poirot's mustache twitched. Deliberate scream pointed to a planned crime. "Let's revisit the crime scene, because Poirot's clues are the heart of the puzzle." He returned to the library, Inspector Harrow trailing with a scowl. The size 6 diamond trade footprint remained elusive. None of the suspects' shoes matched, though Evelyn and Clara's size 6 feet were close. The open window, rain-soaked curtains, and missing green silk thread suggested a staged break-in. The emerald fabric chip, possibly from Evelyn's gown or Clara's shawl, was a tantalizing link. The red wax drop, tied to Holt and Grayson, hinted at a sealed secret. The cyanide vial, with its almond scent, suggested poison, but Ashford's stab wound was the killer. Poirot found a new clue, a faint scratch on the library's oak desk, shaped like a pen nib. Crane's pen, or a distraction. Here's a tip from Poirot's playbook. Test the weak links. The scream's inconsistencies showed the suspects' alibis were fragile. In your life, probe weak stories, ask for specifics, like where someone was at a precise time. Try this. If a friend's excuse feels off, ask what they saw or heard. Poirot used this to trap the suspects, noting Evelyn's deflection, Clara's hesitation, and Thomas's stammer. He also watched their reactions. Crane's smirk faded when Poirot mentioned the safe. Holt's eyes narrowed at the wax, and Grayson's tic worsened at the button. Each crack was a step toward the truth. Poirot turned to the safe, the mystery's heart. "It holds the key," he said. "A will, a contract, or a confession." He asked Grayson about the combination. Only Lord Ashford knew it. The butler insisted, but his tic betrayed him. Poirot revealed the scratches on the locks. Someone had tried to force it. Crane, Holt, Clara, and Thomas had all inquired about the safe, but Evelyn hadn't yet. Her contract was inside. "Mademoiselle Marwood, did you seek to destroy it?" Poirot asked. Evelyn's eyes flashed. "I wanted my freedom," she admitted. "But not murder." Poirot noted Clara's flinch. Her inheritance depended on the safe's contents. Thomas, too, paled. His debts a motive to secure the old will. Another clue emerged. The jasmine scent. Poirot addressed the room. "Three of you, where Jasmine, Evelyn, Clara, Dr. Holt. It lingers in the library, a silent witness," he asked, each to confirm their perfume. Evelyn and Clara nodded, but Holt hesitated, then admitted, "I use it sparingly." Poirot's eyes gleamed sparingly, yet the library's scent was strong. Was it planted? He also revisited the letter opener, Evelyn's initials glaring. It was polished, no prints, he said. A killer's care, or a frame. Evelyn's face paled, but she held his gaze. Crane muttered, "She's an actress, she'd know how to stage it." Holt snapped, "You're no Saint Crane." The room erupted, and Poirot smiled. Chaos revealed truths. "Let's dive into the motives, because Poirot's closing in." Evelyn faced ruin without Ashford's funding. Her betrayal, romantic or professional, fueling his note, "Beware the Enchantress." Crane's expose made Ashford an enemy, his blackmail rumors a motive. Holt's past scandal and Ashford's threats could have pushed her to poison. Clara's inheritance hung on marriage, but Ashford's doubts threatened it. Thomas's debts and disinheritance were desperate motives. Grayson's loyalty masked resentment and a sick sister's needs. Poirot tested them, asking about Ashford's last hours. He was agitated, Grayson said, arguing with everyone. Poirot noted each suspect's glance. Evelyn at Crane, Clara at Thomas, Holt at the floor. Alliances or guilt. Here's another tip: watch for alliances. Poirot saw Evelyn and Crane's shared glances, Clara and Thomas's linked alibis. In your life, notice who defends who, friends covering lies or partners dodging questions. Try tracking interactions, like Poirot did, to spot patterns. He also found a new clue. The storm outside the Ashford townhouse had softened to a restless murmur, but inside, the drawing room crackled with tension, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Hercule Poirot stood at the center, his small frame a beacon of certainty, his grey cells weaving a masterpiece from a tangle of clues. A size 6 diamond tread footprint, a missing pearl, a red wax drop, a cyanide vial, a green silk thread, and the haunting jasmine scent. In Chapter 9, Poirot confronted the suspects' fraying alibis. Their motives laid bare: Valen's desperation, Crane's blackmail, Holt's scandal, Clara's inheritance, Thomas's debts, and Grayson's hidden resentment. Now, in Chapter 10, the killer revealed. Poirot unveils the truth, piecing together every clue to expose the mastermind behind Lord Ashford's murder. The end game is here, and the final twist will cut like a knife. Let's step into the spotlight and unmask the killer. The drawing room was a tableau of strained faces. The chandeliers, dim light casting shadows that danced like ghosts. Lady Evelyn Marwood, her emerald gown creased, gripped her handkerchief. Her eyes defiant. Victor Crane, his notebook clutched like a shield, sat with a nervous smirk. Dr. Amelia Holt, her grey eyes cold, held her composure tightly. Clara Beaumont, her pearls gleaming, twisted her hands, her grief a fragile mask. Thomas Ashford, pale and trembling, hovered near the door, his handkerchief knotted in his fists. Mr. Grayson, the butler, stood rigid, his tic twitching like a warning. Inspector Harrow, exasperated, leaned against the wall, but Poirot commanded. "The room me's Amos," he said, his voice clear as a bell. "The truth is no longer hidden. Hercule Poirot will reveal the killer. Let's recap the clues, because Poirot's brilliance lies in their synthesis. The size 6 diamond tread footprint, found near the library's open window, didn't match any suspects. Shoes of Ellen and Clara's size 6 feet were close, but lacked the tread. The green silk thread, once caught on the window latch, pointed to Clara's shawl or Evelyn's gown, but it vanished, suggesting a cover-up. The red wax drop, near the fireplace, matched Holt's sealing wax and Grayson's smudged cuff. The cyanide vial, with its almond scent, hinted at poison. Yet the letter opener Evelyn's, with her initials, was the murder weapon. The missing pearl tied to Clara's necklace, the wine smudge to Thomas's suit, and Crane's torn note, "Meet me 10 p.m., wove a complex web. The jasmine scent, shared by Evelyn, Clara, and Holt, was a ghostly thread, and the safe's sealed envelope loomed as the final key. Poirot began with the scream, the spark that lit the mystery. It was no cry of fear, he said, but a deliberate act, low and calculated, to draw us to the body. He turned to Evelyn. "Mademoiselle, your actress's skill could craft such a sound, yet your alibi places you in the ballroom." Evelyn's lips tightened. He faced Clara and Thomas. "You claim you were together, yet your descriptions of the scream shrill, vague, do not align." Thomas stammered. Clara flinched. Poirot's eyes flicked to Grayson. "You heard it clearly, monsieur, from the library's direction, yet you hesitated." Grayson's tic surged. The scream, Poirot deduced, was a distraction, staged to set the scene. But by whom? Let's dive into the crime scene, because Poirot's truth lies in its details. The library was a stage. Ashford's body, stabbed with Evelyn's letter opener, lay on the Persian rug. The open window, rain-soaked curtains, and missing silk. Thread suggested an intruder, but no fingerprints marred the latch. The diamond tread footprint size 6 was a deliberate clue, Poirot realized, left to mislead. "The killer wore another's shoes," he said, "a woman's, perhaps, to frame Mademoiselle Marwood or Mademoiselle Beaumont. The emerald fabric chip, likely from Evelyn's gown, was planted, as was the pearl near Clara's necklace. The red wax drop, tied to Holt and Grayson, was a red Herringcomen seal in wax, not unique. The cyanide vial, though, was key. It was not used, Poirot declared, but placed to suggest poison, diverting from the true method stabbing. Here's a tip from Poirot's playbook. See through the misdirection. The footprint, pearl, and vial were staged to confuse, like a magician's trick. In your life, watch for distractions, excuses that shift blame or clutter the truth. Try this when faced with a complex problem. List the facts, then cross out the noise. Poirot did this, focusing on the letter opener and safe. The opener, polished, clean, was Evelyn's, but anyone could have taken it. The safe, with its scratched lock and sealed envelope, held the motive. Poirot requested Harrow open it. Inside was a new will, cutting out Thomas and Clara, and a letter exposing a scandal not Evelyn's, but Holt's misdiagnosis of Ashford's cousin. Poirot turned to the motives, laying them bare. Mademoiselle Marwood, you faced ruin without Ashford's funding, but your betrayal was professional, not murderous. Evelyn exhaled, her defiance softening. Monsieur Crane, your expose angered Ashford, but blackmail was your game, not murder. Crane's smirk faded. Dr. Holt, your scandal drove you to silence Ashford's threats, but your wax was a coincidence. Holt's eyes widened. Mademoiselle Beaumont, your inheritance was at risk, and your pearl betrays your presence. Clara gasped. Monsieur Thomas, your debts and disinheritance pushed you to desperation. Thomas shrank. And Monsieur Grayson, your loyalty hid resentment, but not murder. Grayson's tick slowed.